How to keep £400,000 of spending secret from a significant other. It's caught here. If you like my content and feel able to, please do like it or follow my blogs, Spotify and YouTube channels or Facebook channel. It would mean and help an awful lot. Thank you. https://korg9000.wordpress.com/ How to keep £400,000 of spending secret from a significant other. A humorous take on the Pete and Jimmy cranky look-alike issue. There are certain ambitions in life that sound perfectly sensible when first uttered aloud, but rapidly become less convincing once subjected to even the most cursory examination. Examples include building a nuclear reactor in the shed, teaching a cat to file tax returns, and attempting to keep £400,000 of spending secret from one's significant other. At first glance, it seems straightforward enough. £400,000 is, after all, merely a number. A collection of digits. An abstraction. Surely one could simply spend it quietly, avoid mentioning it over dinner, and carry on as normal. Unfortunately, reality has a habit of intervening. The difficulty lies in the fact that £400,000 is not an amount of money that naturally disappears without leaving traces. It is not a tenner misplaced down the back of the sofa. It is not an impulse purchase of a novelty toaster. It is not even a regrettable weekend involving a classic car auction and several pints of strong ale. It is £400,000. That quantity of expenditure has a tendency to develop what police detectives refer to as evidence. Quite a lot of evidence, in fact. Let us therefore examine the challenge facing our hypothetical would-be secret spender. The mathematics problem. The first issue is scale. People often underestimate what £400,000 actually looks like. Imagine spending £100 every day. Not a difficult task these days. A tank of fuel, a few groceries, lunch somewhere nice, perhaps a gadget that seemed essential at the time. At £100 per day it would take almost 11 years to spend £400,000. Even increasing the burn rate dramatically presents difficulties. Suppose you spend £1,000 every week. That still takes nearly 8 years. The simple truth is that £400,000 is an amount that stubbornly refuses to remain inconspicuous. You cannot accidentally spend it. You cannot casually misplace it. You cannot wake up one morning and say, "Good heavens! I appear to have purchased a small Marina and 3 vintage Jaguars without noticing." The arithmetic itself becomes a witness. The banking problem. The second challenge concerns banks. Banks are remarkably interested in money. This is one of their defining characteristics. Every transaction leaves a trail. Statements arrive. Apps send notifications. Emails appear. Interest calculations occur. Someone somewhere produces a spreadsheet. In many households there exists an individual who possesses supernatural awareness of financial activity. This person may not know where their glasses are. They may not remember where they parked. They may struggle to operate the television remote. Yet somehow they can detect a discrepancy of £4.73 in a joint account from 6 months ago. Such individuals represent a significant obstacle to any secret spending operation. You may believe you have hidden £400,000. They have already noticed a subscription service you forgot to cancel in 2019. The physical evidence problem. Money tends to become things. This creates complications. Imagine attempting to explain the sudden appearance of a speedboat. What's that? What? The enormous speedboat. Oh, that. It's always been there. No, it hasn't. Perhaps you've only just noticed it. This strategy rarely succeeds. The same applies to sports cars, holiday homes, grand pianos, private helicopters, race horses, and collections of antique arcade machines. Objects occupy space. Space attracts attention. Attention leads to questions. Questions lead to uncomfortable conversations. Before long, one is attempting to explain why a Victorian steam traction engine is parked on the driveway. The hobby escalation problem. Many secret spending fantasies begin with hobbies. The logic appears sound. A hobby is personal. A hobby provides plausible deniability. A hobby can surely absorb substantial expenditure without attracting notice. This belief is generally maintained until approximately the £40,000 mark. After that, the hobby begins to evolve. The enthusiast tells themselves they merely collect model railways. Soon they own enough track to recreate the West Coast Main Line. The photography enthusiast starts with a camera. Several years later they possess equipment visible from space. The cyclist acquires just one more bike on 17 separate occasions. The car enthusiast develops an alarming tendency to describe vehicles as investments. The phrase "it's worth more than I paid for it" becomes alarmingly common. Unfortunately, significant others are adept at recognizing hobby inflation, especially when it starts requiring dedicated buildings. The house problem. One might attempt to hide expenditure within the home. After all, improvements can be subtle. A new kitchen here. A new bathroom there. Perhaps some landscaping. Perhaps a conservatory. Perhaps a swimming pool. Perhaps a private cinema. Perhaps an underground lair worthy of a Bond villain. The problem is cumulative. At some point the house becomes unrecognizable. Visitors begin saying things such as, "Didn't this used to be a semi-detached?" And, "When did you install the waterfall?" And, "Is that a drawbridge?" The explanation becomes increasingly difficult. The vehicle problem. Motor vehicles deserve special attention because they represent one of humanity's most effective mechanisms for converting money into regret. A person determined to conceal expenditure may believe they can simply rotate through various cars unnoticed. This overlooks a crucial fact. Most partners know exactly what car sits on the drive. They may not know the engine size. They may not know the power output. They may not care about either. But they generally notice when a modest hatchback is replaced by something capable of launching itself to Scotland before breakfast. Attempting to disguise a luxury purchase is particularly challenging. Claiming that the bright red Italian supercar cost about the same as a used Mondeo is unlikely to withstand scrutiny, especially when the insurance premium resembles the annual budget of a small nation. The holiday problem. Travel creates paperwork. Tickets. Reservations. Passports. Photos. Receipts. Credit card records. Luggage. Tan lines. People who attempt to hide expensive holidays encounter numerous difficulties. For example, returning from the Maldives and pretending one spent the week in Milton Keynes. The photographs tend to undermine the narrative, as do the weather-related details. Likewise, colleagues often prove unhelpful. Nothing destroys a carefully constructed fiction quite like a co-worker cheerfully asking, "How was the overwater villa?" During a family gathering. The friend problem. Friends are dreadful at secrecy. Absolutely dreadful. A friend entrusted with sensitive information develops an overwhelming desire to discuss it. This tendency becomes stronger after alcohol. A supposedly confidential purchase will eventually emerge during conversation. Usually at the worst possible moment. Perhaps Christmas lunch. Perhaps a wedding. Perhaps immediately after somebody asks whether household finances are under control. The friend will grin broadly and say, "At least you're not buying helicopters." Silence follows. Eyes turn. Questions begin. The game is up. The delivery driver problem. Modern commerce relies heavily upon delivery services. Delivery drivers are innocent participants in countless domestic dramas. They arrive bearing evidence. Large boxes. Medium boxes. Suspiciously expensive boxes. Boxes requiring signatures. Boxes requiring forklifts. No matter how carefully a person plans, eventually somebody opens the front door and asks, "What exactly have you ordered this time?" The correct answer is rarely nothing. Particularly when a lorry is unloading a grand piano. The accountant problem. At higher spending levels, professionals become involved. Accountants ask questions. Solicitors ask questions. Financial advisors ask questions. Mortgage providers ask questions. Tax authorities occasionally become curious. These people are not generally known for accepting explanations such as, "Please don't worry about it." Nor are they inclined to participate enthusiastically in elaborate domestic cover stories. Their professional instincts tend towards documentation. Documentation is the natural enemy of secrecy. The technology problem. Modern life records everything. Banking apps. Shopping histories. Location data. Email archives. Cloud backups. Digital receipts. Search histories. Loyalty cards. One smartphone effectively becomes a prosecution witness. A determined investigator can reconstruct astonishing levels of detail. They can discover where you were, what you bought, when you bought it, how much you paid, and, in some cases, how many times you compared prices before buying it. Attempting to conceal £400,000 in spending while carrying a smartphone is rather like attempting to conduct covert military operations while live streaming them. The emotional problem. This is where the plan truly begins to unravel. Secrets require maintenance. Maintenance requires effort. Effort becomes stress. Stress creates mistakes. People remember the money but forget the story. Or remember the story but forget who has heard it. One week the motorcycle cost £2,000. The next week it cost £4,000. A month later it apparently arrived as a promotional giveaway with a packet of biscuits. Consistency becomes impossible. The human brain was not designed to maintain a complex web of financial fiction indefinitely. It struggles enough with remembering passwords. The cat problem. Every household contains an unpredictable variable. Sometimes it is a dog. Sometimes a child. Sometimes an elderly relative. Sometimes a cat. Cats are particularly dangerous because they possess no loyalty whatsoever. A cat will cheerfully reveal hiding places by sleeping in them. It will sit on important paperwork. It will knock receipts into public view. It will draw attention to concealed purchases simply by refusing to leave them alone. No espionage organization would employ cats. They cannot be trusted. The neighbor problem. Neighbors notice everything. They know when bins are collected. They know when visitors arrive. They know when garden fences move 6 inches. They know when unusual vehicles appear. Many of them possess observational abilities exceeding those of military reconnaissance satellites. Attempting to conceal major spending while living near attentive neighbors is extremely ambitious. They have already prepared a detailed report. Possibly color-coded. The Christmas problem. Eventually Christmas arrives. Or birthdays. Or anniversaries. Financial reality becomes awkward. A person who has secretly spent £400,000 must somehow explain why household gift budgets appear strangely constrained. This can create difficult optics, particularly if the explanation is delivered while standing beside a recently acquired classic Bentley. Priorities become visible. Visible priorities prompt discussions. Discussions rarely favor the secret spender. The television detective principle. Crime dramas have taught us an important lesson. People always believe they have committed the perfect deception. Then a detective notices something absurdly small. A receipt. A timestamp. A parking ticket. A photograph in the background. The same principle applies here. One does not get caught because of the £400,000. One gets caught because of the £6.99 accessory purchased alongside it. The tiny detail becomes the loose thread. The loose thread becomes an investigation. The investigation becomes a revelation. The ultimate problem. All these difficulties point toward a larger issue. Relationships are not accounting exercises. Most successful long-term partnerships rely upon trust. Not perfect trust. Not blind trust. But enough trust that both people broadly understand what is happening. Attempting to conceal enormous expenditure therefore creates two separate challenges. First, the practical challenge of hiding the money. Second, the emotional challenge of hiding the fact that one is hiding the money. The first is difficult. The second is almost impossible. Even if the spending remains undiscovered for a time, the strain eventually appears elsewhere. Conversations become awkward. Decisions become complicated. Financial planning becomes increasingly absurd. Soon the individual is maintaining a fictional version of reality. That rarely ends well. Conclusion. So, how does one keep £400,000 of spending secret from a significant other? The answer, disappointingly, is that one generally does not. The money leaves traces. The purchases leave traces. The banks leave traces. The technology leaves traces. Friends leave traces. Neighbors leave traces. Cats leave traces. Quite often literal traces. The sheer scale of the expenditure conspires against secrecy at every turn. And even if somebody somehow succeeded in concealing the financial evidence, they would still face the more difficult challenge of concealing the consequences. In practice, most attempts collapse long before reaching the £400,000 mark. Usually somewhere between the suspicious bank statement and the inexplicable appearance of a second sports car. The truly remarkable aspect is not that people get caught. It is that they ever imagine they will not. If there is a genuine secret to handling £400,000 of spending within a relationship, it is not concealment. It is communication. Admittedly, communication lacks the glamour of covert operations. There are no code names, no hidden vaults, no elaborate cover identities, no dramatic confrontations in underground bunkers. It is simply two adults discussing finances. Which may not sound exciting, but it is considerably cheaper than explaining why there is suddenly a helicopter in the garden. And, unlike the helicopter, it stands a reasonable chance of lasting. It's caught here. If you like my content and feel able to, please do like it or follow my blogs, Spotify and YouTube channels or Facebook channel. It would mean and help an awful lot. Thank you. https://korg9000.wordpress.com/